What's your emergency?
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the BiIO podcast, a place for all things public information related for police, fire, EMS, local, state, and federal government. An open forum to learn, grow, and develop your public information skills. My name is Robert Tortabeni, and I am your host. I am a public information officer with over 17 years in the field and 27 years of law enforcement background. In each episode, we will explore different aspects of the public information officer profession. Weekly, we'll delve into the field of public information by talking to other PIOs. Welcome to Season 5. Thank you for your support of the podcast. I can't believe we're in our 5th season. So sit back and enjoy this episode.
Today on the PIO podcast, I'd like to introduce Summer Derrey. Summer, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Thanks for being on the show, Summer. Whenever I find people that have an interesting background or have the experience that's extremely broad like yours, I want to get them on the show because it helps teach other public information officers, the things that other people are doing or see the dynamic and how they got where they were. So first, like I always do with everybody, I try and learn a little bit about themselves. What was your path and how did you become a PIO?
Yeah, so I started my career in newsrooms in my teens and early 20s. I went to Washington State University, go Cougs, and I was really eager to get back into the newsroom. So I finished my BA as quickly as possible in just a little over 3 years. I really grew up watching Channel 1 News. I don't know if that's still a thing anymore, in the 90s with like Anderson Cooper. And so that really inspired me to be a field producer. That was my end goal. And then my story is not so fun. My mom got sick. She had cancer. And so I really was looking for just kind of a temporary job with less stress and a little bit more pay. So cut to the chase, I've been a public information officer at WSDOT for 18 years now. And funny story, it is not less stress.
No, most PIO jobs are, if people really knew what they involved, they probably would have not gotten into them. If you think about it at some point.
Yeah.
So what kept you on board as a PIO? Why didn't you go back to the news?
So this would have been about 2007 or so, and WSDOT, where I work, the DOT issued me a BlackBerry, and believe it or not, cell phones caught on. So, and then I also saw a lot of momentum growing with the social media thing, and I saw the writing on the wall with the newsrooms and how that might shift. But this was a wave that I wanted to stay on. Communications was changing. I was absolutely fascinated by that. I come from a long line of public servants, lots of veterans in my family. And so, our general mission is to serve others. And so I felt really passionate about that the PIO gig certainly fit my purpose in life. And also transportation is very multifaceted, and I'm a very curious person.
As your role, when you first got there at your role, what surprised you about it? What was the first thing that surprised you that was different from your news role?
Government has a process for everything. The culture in the newsroom is very relaxed, and so the structure surprised me certainly. And then also, again, I have to go back to, this was early on. This is when we were making our motto at the time was lead with the web. So, and that quickly changed.
Well, yeah. And then the news really became, if it bleeds, it leads, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's your role at WSDOT?
I'm the Assistant Communications Manager for South Central Region. South Central Region is kind of big. It goes from North Bend to Walla Walla, kind of skips the north side. We've got some major mountain passes within my region, Chinook, Snoqualmie Pass, that's along I-90, and White Pass, really good skiing up there. And then so we have 2 seasons in Washington, winter and construction. And so I often lead communications for some of the mountain passes for those relentless Washington winters. In the summertime, I do a lot of communication with all the construction that's happening along I-90. I work a lot down south in the area with some area tribes, doing traffic safety. I think that longevity at an agency just lends itself to lots of jobs. So dozens and dozens of really interesting projects I get to work on.
Wait a minute. You said you work with tribes. So you work with the local tribes there, and you said the Yakima Nation is one of them. Let's talk about that. What is that like?
Working with the tribes, there's very much a structure and an etiquette to follow. Give you a little backstory. So we've been working with the Yakima Nation for about 10 years on a roundabout project with the tribe. The DOT initially went to the tribe and said, hey, look, we want to build 8 roundabouts on this very highway that's known for a lot of fatalities. And so the tribe was like, no, roundabouts are new and you don't really have a relationship with us. And so from there, they brought in me and a consultant to come along, kind of smooth out some edges there, build a relationship. There's just lots of facets to that. I don't know how much you want to get into that.
I was just curious about working with, because it's own government, they have their own beliefs about the land and so on. So I was just curious, from a public relations point of view or a public information point of view, what was that? How was that in dealing with it? Were you, because you've been there for so long, it's not much of an issue?
A relationship had to be built with the tribe for sure. The DOT and the engineers initially went in and said 8 roundabouts, and then we had to back up and say, no, let's talk about this. And so really some key takeaways working with the tribes. It was a process. We built a relationship, over the period of 8 years. You're just not grandfathered into this circle of trust. This took many, many years. I think that, when the tribe saw DOT's willingness to learn and back up a few steps, they really wanted to teach us. Part of this process is a PIO. Within that, it involved excluding people. We didn't want a revolving door of employees communicating with tribal members. We wanted to build that trust, that foundation. So it was extremely effective when we just said, hey, here's a limited number of people. They'll probably be at WSDOT forever. Here's your advisors. And so in that process, the tribal members were in the consulting and empowering phases of this, community engagement spectrum.
So looking at what you guys do at WSDOT, let's talk about the social media structure you guys have there. You guys have got a very robust social media presence, right?
Yeah, I just had to check the other day, 1.87 million followers across all platforms.
Wow.
So, as I like to say, it's shake and bake, and I helped. I've been there a long time, but I just take a sliver of the credit for all that. Occasionally, I have a clever idea. We've been lucky to have some excellent social media managers. Our mission has always been the same: authenticity. Whether it's a bear drawing because we didn't have a camera available, or a song parody about a moose. I'm certainly looking forward to this winter. This new social media manager, Rachel Turlip, she's awesome. I'm excited. I want to work with her, and I've got a lot of clever ideas for winter communication to help drivers on their safety.
Did you say a singing moose?
I did a parody about a moose one time.
Okay.
We had one moose on one of the overcrossings, and I thought the words to the Bohemian Rhapsody were "spot a moose, spot a moose." It was not that, but from that it just became this kind of clever thing that I did for a while.
Awesome. I love that. Those are things that, if you can find those ways to connect the community with something like that, I mean, those are the things that go viral for your socials, and that creativity. That's a really neat little way to connect everything.
Yeah. So we're on most social media platforms. Facebook we have one Facebook page that's for statewide topics. We have a handful of unique Twitter handles. I help grow an audience on the Snoqualmie Pass I-91 with over 100,000 followers. But Instagram and TikTok, they're rising up, and I'm excited to see how those platforms go.
And the new social media manager is going to be working on those?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's got a lot of really good videos out. I actually had one that went viral, I'm told, recently. We got a lot of complaints about a construction project along the Vantage Bridge. And so I thought, well, I'll just fix it. And so you can see the silly video of me with a hammer smacking the bridge. And here's the PIO fixing it. So, yeah, that was my brainchild and Rachel's brainchild. So you got to have her on the show. She's fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll circle back to that sometime over the new season. So, Summer, what are your thoughts about Twitter? Because everybody's got mixed feelings about it right now.
Yeah, looking at my audience and my engagement there, it certainly is down. That's normal for the summertime. People rely on my specific Twitter account when they really need to get over in the winter and they're unsure about weather and how to chain up and all that process. So the true test will be in the winter to see if that is up or down. However, I do take comfort in the fact that, as a PIO, we rely on all sources of or ways to get information to the public. I've got a huge listserv, text message option, and of course, those other social media platforms that are useful. I was just listening to your podcast the other day with my friend Sarah, and she said social media is not going to save you. So I appreciate that message.
It's so important, and so many agencies, and I've had this conversation with several PIOs, and I was just in I did a seminar talking about AI the other day for Talk Public Relations in Palm Springs, and we were talking about don't rely just on your social media. Make sure your website is up to date and has all the newest features available. And if it's an old website, get rid of it and get something new, because your website is where you can push people to. And most people's websites are horribly outdated. They're not maintained very well. They're certainly not going to sustain a firewall attack if they get hit, because most of them are really not well maintained. So yeah, I really push for people to make sure their websites are up to date.
Absolutely, I agree.
You're one of the many PIOs that has completed FEMA's Master PIO program. Your research paper was on community engagement. Why that topic?
Yeah, so community engagement seems like a popular phrase right now, specifically in my state. And Robert, not a trick question here, but I'm just kind of curious. What is your interpretation or definition of community engagement?
So for me, and I've been involved in community engagement for my 27 years as a law enforcement officer. I started out, that's the way I got involved and became a PIO. Was for me, it was about having conversations with the community, finding out what they need to make their life better, and then working with them through the government to make it better. That's kind of what my version of community engagement is.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that definition. Yeah, for the past 10 months, I've been asking every single person, what do you think? It's always just a little bit different. I found out that a bunch of terms were used interchangeably, like public outreach, public participation, public engagement, public involvement, civic engagement. Equitable outreach is kind of a word that I've been exploring recently. So anyway, the point of my research was it's a bit semantics. I wanted to get to the bottom of a word or a phrase. So what I found out, eventually through this research is that community engagement essentially was developed in the 1960s into the 90s in the form of public participation models. Initially, I thought that community engagement was just advances to like communication technology, and so maybe it's just like really, really good public outreach. It's not. It really is not that at all. So, when I look at, I don't want to get too thick in the weeds here, but when I look at community engagement, what it is, I view community engagement as like the fair treatment of people. It's community engagement is sort of shoulder to shoulder with environmental justice and DEI, and I think, I hear some of your audience members kind of, either applauding or rolling their eyes when they hear, DEI and,
it's
justice.
a double-edged sword. It is a double-edged sword in some cases, because when you talk to the civilian PIOs, it's much different perspective as opposed to the sworn PIOs that are out there, and that's okay. I understand that, and coming from a law enforcement background, we're shaped differently, and our perceptions are shaped differently at certain times. So that happens. But in your opinion, the return of community engagement, because it kind of died off for a long time. I mean, we talked about community policing back in the 90s and into the early 2000s, and that kind of died off for quite a long time. And now we're starting to talk about, and like you said, we're seeing community engagement come back so much more. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, circling back to those DEI laws, really just, as a PIO, the takeaway from that is it's just providing people equal access. to information. And so I think that there was a resurgence of this because of those laws. My research found that 19 states have laws regarding that. So, we look at this in terms of, well, a PIO has an ethical obligation and maybe some legal obligations as well. And then so a little bit of my research kind of alluded to there's different interpretations of community engagement. And so looking at the PIO, I would push back. If you're asked to do community engagement, what does that mean? And then, so I viewed it as a public participation model, again, dating back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, even into the 90s. IAP2, the International Association of Public Participation, excellent agency leading that model. There's about 5 stages of community engagement: inform, consult, involve, collaborate, and empower. And so again, looking at community engagement, like, it's just not one thing. It's a lot of things coming together. And so what is a PIO's role in that? And I very much feel firmly that a PIO sets the foundation for that process. The first 3 rungs: the inform, the consult, the involve. And so we very much have a piece to that, but there's a lot of other key players in public participations. There's your organizations, your decision makers within those. There's multidisciplinary teams. There's the communities themselves that have very much a part in this process.
And now, a word from our sponsors. Increase your social media reach and streamline your workflow with Social News Desk, the social media management software trusted by government agencies across the country. Publish effortlessly and securely across multiple social networks, including Nextdoor. Stay connected with social listening, engagement, and reporting tools all in one place. And here's an exclusive offer just for PIO podcast listeners. Get 3 months free when you sign up. Head over to socialnewsdesk.com/PIO to get started today. And now, back to our episode. In regards to the inform and consult, I like that breakdown that you had for community engagement. That's a really neat. Inform, consult, involve, collaborate, and empower. That's a really good way to break it down. And I look at, for a PIO, their whole job is basically doing all of that at different times. And I usually look at PIOs when they're struggling. Part of that is because they're overwhelmed. Like we said earlier, if PIOs knew what they were getting into in the beginning, they may not have gotten into it because it is so involved. And it's probably the most difficult work I've ever done in comparison even to some of the law enforcement work I've done, because there's so many minefields, both internally and externally, that you can step into. From your perspective, being in this field for so long, what are some things that you can do that you can care for yourself so that you can protect yourself from that burnout?
Oh, wow, that's a really good question. I am not the best example, Robert. I am a bit of a workaholic here.
Oh, yeah, me too.
We are learning now that, there's things like compassion fatigue that we need to be very, very aware of, right? So biggest thing that I kind of do as a PIO is give myself a lot of grace. I don't like making mistakes, but I recognize that the information that I get in the field is the best information available at the time. I always think about that when you're on hour 8, 9, 10, 11, maybe even hour 14 in the JIC, and it's your time to let go. And I'm gonna get emotional, and you do not want to let go. That was your disaster. That was your crisis. Nobody can communicate it better than you, and you are tired. You can't move anymore. Just really reminding yourself that it's okay. I've done everything in my activity log to set the next person up for success. And so just being okay with letting go. I think it comes with a little bit of age, a little bit of maturity, but it's not an easy thing to do.
I agree 100%. And that is one of the hardest things in an incident when you've gotten to that maybe 18, 20 hour mark to say, okay, I need to go lay down, or I need to pass this on. That's the hardest thing to do for a PIO, because we own it. We want to own that situation. But at the same time, we have to step back. And that is key to making sure that you don't crash and burn, because it'll be one of those things where you'll wig out on camera and it won't be pretty. And then it'll just be a whole different can of worms.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Summer, did we talk about the whole tribe up thing? Did we talked about that earlier, right?
I think we kind of covered most of it. Yeah, really, looking in terms of connections between community engagement and tribes, my case study within the Yakama Nation, I firmly believe that it was full spectrum community engagement. The tribe itself was in the driver's seat in terms of collaboration and empowerment. They had to be like, that's their land. And so, I guess the biggest takeaway here, I want to circle back to that community engagement. Ask what your agency wants of you when you're expected to do that, and then also recognize that that is an ethical obligation. The relationships that I've created with the tribes over years, that's a relationship that I'll take with me for the rest of my life, and that's something that I want to carry on. So, initially the tribe said, no, don't do any roundabouts or go back to the drawing board, and here we are today. They've approved, I think, about 7 of them. It's written in the resolutions that WSDOT, or me specifically, is supposed to carry out roundabout education, that public outreach piece of it, for years and years to come. And so that's a promise that I truly intend to keep, and continue to build those relationships.
Sure, give me some things about your experience. What was one of the key absolute successes that you took out of that you said, yeah, I did that?
Oh, in terms of working with a tribe?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So I created a roundabout education curriculum that was very child focused. And so I thought, oh, wouldn't it be great if we had like life-size human cars? I created old document boxes, spray painted them, turning them into cars. And then every single chance I get, I've done this dozens of times, taken a great big area outside and kind of staked it out, and created roundabouts. And so when we host these community-led events, kids come up to me, we put on our cars, I teach them the movements of the roundabouts. This allows one-on-one conversations with myself and the students, right, and hope that the parents are listening. And so I've had a lot of fun. I have about 5 or 6 different ways I teach people to drive roundabouts. I will talk to them blue in the face about how much I love them, how much I think they're a much more effective traffic control device. It's almost impossible to die in a roundabout. Knock on wood. So so this roundabout education piece is something that I do take credit for, and that I did create within Washington, and specifically my community.
Excellent. Glad to hear that. And there's more than one tribe that you were involved with there, right?
Primarily just the Yakama Nation.
Okay.
But I do want to point out that, this was my experience working with a couple different offices with one tribe within Washington. I think that no 2 tribes are alike, and all experiences, are going to be different.
Just like dealing with different municipalities could be a different bird of a stone. Yeah, I get it. Summer, anything I haven't asked that I should have? And if so, how would you have answered it?
Well, if we're talking about transportation, and if you're a reporter, I would certainly circle it back to safety, safety, safety. But you were very thorough in your questions. No, this was a great interview. I appreciate this time with you, Robert.
Oh, Summer, real quick question. So this is something that just when you said safety, 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 something popped in my head about a reporter. We had a reporter here in the Chicago metro area a number of years ago. She's standing on the side of the road, not even in the roadway. She was on a curb, and a vehicle left the roadway and ended up hitting her while she was doing a live broadcast. And, I'm thinking now, we have the laws have changed now for law enforcement officers in most states now, where you have to have a traffic safety vest on when you're in the roadway, even if you're doing an accident investigation, where it's almost, in some cases, reporters should be wearing highly reflective clothing so they're visible as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. Every time I talk to a reporter and they need to go get, footage, I have to give them that safety speech, be as far away from the road as possible, have a spotter if you can. Here, why don't you borrow my safety vest, maybe a hard hat, bring it back when you can. Be visible. I think even especially those younger reporters who are just starting out, yeah, I want them to be safe. It says on my work badge, safety is my job.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, let's get into some rapid fire questions.
Sounds good.
Morning person or night owl?
Morning.
Books or movies?
I like audiobooks.
Coffee, tea, or energy drink?
Yeah, I'm into the mushroom fad right now. I like that, the mushroom coffee.
Okay. Yeah, I know a few people that are doing that. How's it working out?
It tastes like coffee. It's for Somatic brand. I don't know. It's fine.
Oh, that's good. Oh, I would hope it would taste like coffee. I mean, because that's what you're subbing it out as. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have an adult drink of choice?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the clock right now. I'm going to pass on that question.
Well, yeah, but we're not saying you're doing it now. Guilty pleasure food.
Oh, gosh. Guilty pleasure food. Dungeness crab all the way from the Puget Sound.
Nice. If you could become an expert at something, what would it be?
I have a ton of hobbies. It's going to be something different next year. But currently right now, I want to be better at ham radio.
Ham radio. Do you have an FCC license?
Yeah. Kilo 7, Papa Bravo November.
Oh, okay. Now that's a new one. I don't think I've ever interviewed anybody that had an FCC license. That's awesome.
So I do want to get into that a little bit more in terms of areas and races and crisis communication. That's completely my next dive that I want to explore. Yep.
Awesome. Ask permission or beg for forgiveness?
I don't like the word no, but the state of Washington has a lot of rules, so it's a very fine line for me.
What is one thing on your bucket list?
Hike the entire Pacific Crest Trail.
If you could sit down and have coffee with any historical figure, who would it be?
Don't think it's historical, but literally any of the women of Saturday Night Live. I absolutely love comedy.
Okay, no, there's a lot of history with there, so there's some funny ladies that were on that show. Absolutely. What's the best piece of advice you've ever got?
Don't always follow it, but act like a duck. Be calm and cool on top, and just fight like heck under the surface.
That is a good one. I love that. Key points from this interview. What would you like the listeners to take away from this?
Really for the PIO, just, letting them know that really, really, really good public outreach is not community engagement. It's just part of the process, but just also recognize that as a PIO, you play a vital role in that.
Excellent. Is there a piece of wisdom or a motto that you live by?
I am going to take a page out of Master PIO Alex Babbitt's book and say gratitude. Just be grateful. I love that. I love that about him.
Excellent. Summer, how could people follow up and reach out to you if they wanted to connect or learn more about WSDOT or anything else that you're doing there?
Yep, I'm on LinkedIn, Summer Derrey. My email address, summerinthefall@gmail.com. I'm very accessible at WSDOT. You got to hop on our socials and check it out. We're on most platforms.
And I will add all of that into the show notes. Summer, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for this time, Robert. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you were awesome. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode and our content. If you are listening on a platform that allows reviews, please give us a review. We read all reviews and your feedback is essential. Do not forget to check out our sponsor, Social News Desk. Thank you, Social News Desk, for their sponsorship and their offer to all our listeners. Please click the link at the bottom of today's show notes to help support the show. Your support in any amount is greatly appreciated. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep the conversation going. You're the heart and soul of the PIO podcast.